5.
Good evening. This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Significant developments today in two of the world's crisis spots, Central America and the Middle East. In the Middle East, it happened in Israel. 5 days of rioting in the occupied West Bank brought the government of Prime Minister Begin to the brink of collapse. More on that in a few moments. In Central America, in Guatemala City, junior military officers rolled out tanks and artillery, surrounded the presidential palace and staged a coup that deposed President Garcia. President-elect Guevara, elected only 2 weeks ago, is reported to be safe. Robert Pierpoint at the State Department has more.
It now appears from a variety of sources that the coup was sponsored by military and political leaders from a fairly broad spectrum who have in common a determination to overturn the results of the March 7th election, which they believe was stolen by the winner, General Aníbal Guevara. The spokesman for the coup is Lionel Cisniega, a civilian who ran as the vice presidential candidate of the National Liberation Movement, a far-right group which he himself calls the Party of Organized Violence.
Well, organized violence is something. You see, organized sound is melody. Organized violence could be strength. Sometimes you have to face the truth.
After the coup today, broadcasting over Guatemala's radio and television, Cisniega said the next step will be to appoint a representative junta to head the government and end the terrorist activities of both right and left. General Rios Montt apparently heads that junta. A Christian Democrat who won an election in 1974 and had it taken from him by conservative military generals, Rios Montt is considered a moderate, giving hope to experts here that he might bring about some much-needed reforms in Guatemala. Robert Pierpoint, CBS News at the State Department.
For nearly a week now, Israel's occupied West Bank has been the scene of violent confrontations between Palestinians and Israeli soldiers. 2 Palestinians have been shot to death. Today, the Begin government's West Bank policy, designed to reduce the voice of the PLO, was tested in the Israeli parliament. And while the result was a parliamentary victory for Begin, Bob Fall tells us that many saw it as a personal defeat.
By law, an Israeli government survives a no-confidence vote, which ends in a tie, but Prime Minister Begin had painted himself into a corner by saying he would resign after a tie vote, following opposition criticism of his policies in the Sinai, Golan Heights, and on the occupied West Bank, where for the 5th straight day, angry Palestinians clashed with Israeli soldiers. So when, after sometimes stormy debate, Israel's Knesset deadlocked 58 all, partly because one member of Begin's coalition voted against him, the chamber was stunned. As Knesset members buzzed about when the new government would be formed, Begin called an emergency meeting of his cabinet and allies, which, after 2 hours, voted 12-6 against accepting Begin's resignation, in effect urging him to stay on. The cabinet secretary said Mr. Begin would do just that.
The cabinet will continue to serve under the current circumstances, under the chairmanship of Mr. Begin for the rest period of time of this session.
Also proceeding will be Israel's scheduled withdrawal from the Sinai, which could have been jeopardized by Begin's resignation and a caretaker government. But threatening to use a tie vote as an excuse to dissolve the government was good politics for Begin. Both he and his opponents know that his party is well ahead in the polls and could expect a comfortable majority if elections were held. What is not clear is why Begin permitted himself to be overruled by a cabinet which ordinarily follows his every whim. The answer, say his critics, shows just how determined Mr. Begin is to remain in power. Bob Fall, CBS News, Jerusalem.
Before 1864, it was impossible to get an insurance policy against personal accidents in America until the Travelers offered it. In 1897, the Travelers issued the first insurance for the automobile. In 1919, the first liability insurance for an even more outlandish invention. And more recently, the first accident insurance for space travel. Call an independent traveler's agent or broker. Considering where we've been and where we're going, why call anyone else?
How long does a John Deere lawn tractor last? 10 or 15 years is not unusual, which means with ordinary use, you could mow a path from New York, across Pennsylvania, through Indiana, Missouri, Kansas, Colorado, Utah, all the way to the West Coast. Imagine mowing clear across America. Just think how many times you could mow your lawn. John Deere, you may pay a little more, but they'll last.
Good economic news today. Based on latest figures, inflation is now at an annual rate of just 3%. The day Ronald Reagan was inaugurated in 1980, the annual inflation rate was 13.5%. A year later, January 1981, inflation was at a much improved but still high 8.9%. Today's Labor Department statistics indicate consumer prices rose just 0.2% last month. That's what produces the current annual inflation rate of a stunningly low 3%. Now, most experts do not expect that rate to hold, but many do say now that they believe the inflation for the whole year may be as low as 6 or 7%. The continuing worldwide oil glut and the recession's effect on the demand for cars and other consumer goods are among reasons for today's good news. Ray Brady has more about this.
For many Americans, the figures mean the dollar is now stretching further. Gasoline is down 2.3%, and in places like Miami, it's bargain land at the gas pump.
I think it's great. You know, it's finally time for something to go down in this part of town, besides the people.
Rebates cut 0.8% off new car sticker prices. Some costs are up, but not by much. Housing up, but only by 0.4%. Food also up, but just 0.6%. All that's an annual inflation rate of 3%, well below last year's 8.9%. These costs are good news for the consumers, but economists also point out that for many Americans, there is a price to be paid for holding down inflation.
If Mr. Reagan wants to take the blame for the recession, I'll give him a good bit of the credit for cutting back inflation.
There may be a surprise for many people in today's lower figures. The incomes of roughly half the nation are tied directly to the consumer price index, and when it goes down, as it did today, so do their incomes. Some examples. Social Security. The exact amount of the drop in payments won't be known for another 30 days, but it's estimated that while last year's checks went up 11.7%, the lower inflation rate means those payments will go up only 7.5% this year. About 14 million Americans have incomes whose cost of living adjustment is tied to the index, and today's drop means a drop in the increases they expect. The administration seems to be winning the battle against inflation, but the continuing recession is causing many workers to wonder about the security of their incomes, even as prices come down. Ray Brady, CBS News, New York.
The Labor Department also reported today that real earnings of Americans jumped 1.9% last month, following a drop of 1.5% in January. President Reagan visited New York tonight to receive a humanitarian award from the National Conference of Christians and Jews. The occasion triggered a large and vocal demonstration led by some prominent religious leaders. One, Rabbi Arnold Jacob Wolf, said he is returning a Conference Brotherhood Award he received 20 years ago to protest tonight's award to Mr. Reagan.
Can't breathe.
You didn't take your contact, did you? And you're going to work? That's the way. Keep going.
George.
You choose. Label says take this, but only when you stay home. Take this, and you'll need 6 for just today.
6?
Or take this one little contact.
That settles it.
That's good. You'll get all their decongestant without their pain and cough things.
I'll phone you from the office.
12-hour contact. Keeps you going.
Hello.
Here are a few things critics are saying about an extraordinary California wine. Gourmet Magazine.
This French Colombard should not be overlooked.
The San Francisco Examiner.
It perfectly evokes the varietal character.
Balls's Private Guide to Wine.
It is one of California's outstanding white wines.
The French Colombard the experts are praising. The award-winning French Colombard of Ernest and Julio Gallo. French Colombard.
Pesky problems occupied the astronauts of Columbia today, missing heat shield tiles and difficulties in determining the full extent of the damage. But this apparently has not endangered the space shuttle mission. Morton Dean has that story.
When the astronauts looked out of their cockpit windows today, they saw something that had escaped their notice yesterday. The heat shield on the nose of the spacecraft was damaged. Pieces of white tile chipped and gouged and broken off.
Now we're in front of window 4, and there's a whole tile there gone, and then pieces, triangular corners of several tile fell out also.
The likely cause of the damage was ice breaking away from the Columbia's super cold fuel tank shortly after liftoff. There are thousands of critically placed tiles whose loss could be catastrophic when the ship descends into the atmosphere on its trip home. But Mission Control informed the Columbia that at first look, the damage that could be seen did not appear to be serious.
Just for information, we think that from your descriptions earlier in the morning, none of those missing tile seem to be in particularly bad areas. We don't anticipate any thermal problems from the ones that you saw.
Also of concern today was the breakdown of 2 television cameras, including this one on the wrist of the Columbia's robot arm. Without the cameras, the astronauts might not be able to guide the arm so it can lift 2 experiments in the shuttle's payload bay. At the Johnson Space Center, a backup team quickly began to improvise possible alternate procedures. The dependability of the arm is essential to the future use of the shuttle. And a mystery developed today. The mystery of the floating flakes.
Okay, you can see big ones and little ones and middle size. It looks like they're coming from the main engine area.
On this third of 4 shuttle test flights, as the astronauts put their heads together on an experiment, NASA had several important problems to ponder. Morton Dean, CBS News, Johnson Space Center, Houston.
A security officer in Houston recently complained, "Here I am in the city of tomorrow, and I can't even get a cop." Understaffing and charges of racism and brutality are only some of the problems plaguing what's been called the nation's most troubled big city police department. Now Steve Young reports on the outcry greeting reform efforts.
The appointment by Houston's mayor, Kathy Whitmire, of Atlanta's Commissioner of Police Safety to be police chief here was controversial from the day of the announcement. Whitmire said naming Lee Brown was in line with her campaign of shaking up Houston's good old boy network, which has seen no police chief from outside the city since World War II.
There is always resistance to any change in any organization. But if you want to make improvements and progress, you have to be prepared to deal with that resistance.
I suspect that what they will ultimately do is work with me as we carry out our responsibilities. That will be my expectation.
Many regarded criticism of Brown's outsider status as resistance to the appointment of a black. While more than 25% of Houston's population is black officers comprise less than 8% of the police force, and there is not a single black above the rank of sergeant. The mayor, seeking to reassure Houston police she was not trying to destroy department morale, met with one of the city's police unions.
It sounded like a bucket of manure that probably turned out like brown sugar.
There was a last-minute bid to delay the city council confirmation vote, and the Houston Police Officers Association tried in the 11th hour to discredit Brown's police work in Atlanta. But the council went along with the mayor and approved Brown 11-3. Brown thanked the mayor and the council.
My wife and family, we look forward to not being a visitor, but being an integral part of your fine city.
When he reports to work in about 3 weeks, Brown will be the first black police chief in Houston's history. Steve Young, CBS News, Houston.
Yesterday, steak in San Francisco. Tonight, teriyaki in Tokyo. Very international. Right down to my card.
I bought my baubles in Bimini.
I bought my skis in Aspen.
No, Switzerland.
So worldly, so welcome.
I bought my tan in Spain. Olé.
So worldly, so welcome.
MasterCard, the only name you need beside your own.
International. So worldly, so welcome. So worldly, so
Mexican Foreign Secretary Castañeda says there's reason to think that Mexico's proposed peace plan for Central America is on the move. As a start under that plan, there would be talks among the U.S., Cuba, and Nicaragua. Castañeda told correspondent Charles Krause today that the main obstacle has to do with how public these talks should be.
Just back from Nicaragua and Cuba, Mexico's foreign secretary said today that Fidel Castro is ready for private talks with the United States. The Nicaraguans, on the other hand, he said, have asked for a high-level and highly visible meeting in Mexico City with Reagan administration officials. In an interview with CBS News, Foreign Secretary Jorge Castañeda said he was prudently optimistic that both sets of talks to reduce tensions in Central America and to discuss bilateral issues would begin soon. Are the Cubans and the Nicaraguans ready to talk about El Salvador?
Yes, they are.
But do they admit they've been shipping arms to the rebels in El Salvador, as the administration alleges?
They have not told me that. They have told me the contrary.
If the Cubans and Nicaraguans refuse to admit that they're sending arms to El Salvador, do you think the United States will want to talk with them?
But one thing is the past, and another thing is a commitment for the future.
Castañeda said he believes the Nicaraguans and Cubans may be ready to barter future support for El Salvador's guerrillas in return for concessions on other unspecified issues from the United States. As for negotiations between the guerrillas and El Salvador's U.S.-backed junta, Castañeda said he thinks it is possible that talks to settle that bloody conflict could eventually take place.
After the elections, there might be a new door opened for negotiations in El Salvador.
Castañeda's optimism, though somewhat restrained, is the first sign in a long time that Central America's problems can be settled through negotiations. He plans to meet Secretary of State Haig sometime soon, after next Sunday's elections in El Salvador. Charles Krause, CBS News, Mexico City.
With El Salvador's elections only 5 days away, the rebels are stepping up their use of a favorite tactic. Part of their reasoning, Steve Croft reports, is that voters can't vote if they can't get to the polls.
El Salvador is a nation that moves by bus. For most people, it's the only way to get to work, the only way to get the groceries home, the only way to move between rebel roadblock and government patrol. It has also become an increasingly unreliable mode of transportation and a major front in the guerrillas' war against the nation's economic infrastructure. The burned-out, blown-up steel carcasses are the most obvious signs of war here. More than 1,000 buses have been destroyed by the rebels over the last 2 years. But the people keep riding them, partly because there's no alternative, and partly because they're not the guerrillas' target. The targets are people like this small businessman who told us his name was Elmer. His whole life is tied up in his 40-passenger bus.
Do you have insurance?
Insurance? No. Not for the buses.
Can't
Only
get it?
for, no. Impossible. That's impossible.
In San Salvador, the Route 5 bus cooperative has lost half its fleet to the guerrillas, and replacement parts for the survivors are as hard to find as insurance. The cooperative is $500,000 in debt, and the middle-class aspirations of its 33 owners are dying a slow death by rebel satchel charge. The owners get telephone calls from guerrillas telling them to keep their buses off the street this week. But they say they will risk the loss of more vehicles because they have bills to pay and employees with mouths to feed and people to get to work. But the guerrillas' plan to bleed the economy and wear down morale seems to be working. To know that, all you have to do is try and catch a bus. Steve Croft, CBS News, San Salvador.
The election in El Salvador is Sunday, but all campaigning ends tomorrow. The rebels call the election a farce. A right-wing party calls it a chance for national salvation. Correspondent Gary Shepard calls it a great experiment.
At first glance, it might look like a typical American election campaign, but this is really more like a commercial for the security industry. There are guns everywhere. Automatic weapons, rifles, sidearms, submachine guns, you name it, they've got it. And not just at campaign rallies. Even the Election Commission has a few weapons around the office. Some candidates have received death threats. One has already been murdered, and many never venture outside anymore without plenty of protection. Bodyguards and bulletproof vests are essential campaign equipment. This candidate was shot and wounded in the back a few weeks ago when he didn't have his vest on. Now he never leaves home without it. It's all part of El Salvador's attempt at democracy. For most people here, an alien concept.
You're right. They don't know what democracy is because they have never had it. But once you taste the honey, you like it, then you keep on tasting it.
That taste of honey is what the United States is counting on. Washington's hope is that the assembly of 60 men and women elected on Sunday will write a new constitution and organize presidential elections, perhaps as early as next year.
To my mind, these elections, this act of faith in democracy, will be the most revolutionary event in recent Salvadoran history.
The Reagan administration is supporting the Christian Democrats, the party of President Jose Napoleon Duarte. If the scenario plays out the way Washington would like it to, Duarte's party will win a clear majority of delegates and use its mandate to rein in the army and continue with its current program of reform. The idea is to encourage a middle ground in a country that for half a century has known nothing but political extremes. In recent years, a small middle class has emerged from what used to be a society of only rich and poor. It is to the middle class that first-time candidates like housewife Anna Rochak appeal.
Salvadorians are not dumb. They know what they are doing. And in the moment of the vote, they are going to vote for people who think no more violencia, no more hate in this country. It's too much blood. We need to start talking like human people, not killing each other.
This man, the one in the bulletproof vest, also claims he can stop the killing. But if his party wins, Washington will not be pleased. He is Roberto Dabuson, a former National Guard major often linked with right-wing death squads. In the past, he has tried to overthrow the government. Now he appears to be giving democracy a chance. Although his campaign speeches suggest there is only one real party for El Salvador, his own Arena Party. And if anyone else wins, the country is surely on the road to communism. Dabuson promises to control the left, ending the war with a military victory over the rebels. The ruling Christian Democrats claim Dabuson plans to use napalm against the guerrillas, and a victory for his party would mean a bloodbath for the country.
People will have to choose between the extreme right and the extreme left, and many innocent people will be killed. I can assure you that perhaps the death toll will jump 10 times more than it is happening right now.
Critics of the election point out that voters are being given only a limited choice, since the extreme left, the rebel side, isn't even represented on the ballot. And U.S. Ambassador Dean Hinton readily admits the election won't stop the fighting.
We expect there's going to be a lot of bang, bang, and boom, boom.
Because of the war, the election never would have been held this soon, according to one leading candidate, if it hadn't been for heavy pressure from the United States. Salvadoran voters are caught in the middle of all of this. In some places, the rebels are threatening to kill them if they do vote. In others, the army is threatening to kill them if they don't. Gary Shepard, CBS News, San Salvador.
As many as 100,000 French farmers marched in Paris today trying to dramatize a 10% drop in their incomes last year. The farmers want the French government to press for higher prices for farm products at a meeting of the European Economic Community in Brussels next week. Today's demonstration was peaceful, but it was not much help to Paris's eternal traffic jam.
Everywhere, people are discovering the variety of Amway quality products without going shopping.
My laundry looks great with Amway SA8.
Nutrilite Food Bars by Amway get me through the morning.
Artistry Cosmetics and Jewelry by Amway get me through the evening.
Amway has it all.
Shop the world of Amway, so easy to do.
Digel tops Planet acids. We proved it in recent laboratory tests. Cutting the yellow top off a Digel tablet illustrates the results. Without its top layer, Digel consumes as much heartburn-producing acid as plain antacids like Rolaids. What's more, Digel has the yellow top and gives you the fast, gas-calming action of simethicone. Conclusion: when you want more than plain relief, Digel tops plain antacids.
The United States Supreme Court heard arguments today in a unique case with unique presentation. It involves the education rights of the handicapped. Fred Graham has details.
In suburban New York, Furnace Woods Elementary School's only deaf student, fourth grader Amy Rowley, is suing the school district over the rights of the handicapped. School officials furnished her with a hearing aid and a teacher who knew sign language, and Amy made good grades. But her deaf parents said the school system should also provide a full-time sign language interpreter, and that made Amy's case a test of the federal Aid to Handicapped Students law.
The case produced the first argument by a totally deaf lawyer before the Supreme Court. It was made possible when the justices relaxed their traditional aversion to electronic technology to permit a space-age translation system inside the Supreme Court chamber. As each justice asked his questions, they were typed out by this stenotypist, and a computer printed the words on this video screen in front of the deaf lawyer. That permitted the lawyer, who couldn't hear a thing, to engage in a question and answer session with the justices.
So in court today, Michael Chatoff argued that local school systems should be required to provide whatever is necessary to put handicapped students on the same level as normal children. That would be impossible and prohibitively expensive, said the school board's lawyer, as deaf spectators followed the argument by sign language. The justices seemed impressed with the school board's argument that if Amy wins, each dissatisfied handicapped student could go to court, and that school officials should be allowed to do what they think is best to provide for the handicapped. But how would Amy feel with no interpreter?
You think I'm sad. I'll be left out.
Fred Graham, CBS News, Washington.
And that's the CBS Evening News for this Tuesday. Dan Rather reporting from New York. Thank you for joining us. Good night.
At Ford Motor Company, quality is job one.
Job one is to make the very best car we can.
When we talk about quality, you know, we have to back it up.
And this dedication is already paying off. Overall, a 48% improvement in quality since 1980, as reported by new car owners.
Better and better, see what we've done. At Ford, quality is job one.
This is the story of the life of a small business and a fact of life the partners overlooked. The fact they overlooked is that nobody lives forever, and that life insurance from the travelers could have helped finance the passing of ownership to the surviving partner and kept the business going. Call an independent traveler's agent or broker. Sure, there are bigger businesses the travelers insures, but none more important.
Now it's a whole new morning with the latest news from Bill Curtis and Diane Sawyer. Plus sports, money, weather, entertainment on the new CBS Morning News.
This is CBS.
Lawmakers try again to raise their own salaries. We'll have that story coming up next on Eyewitness News.
Presenting the Datsun MVPs. The maximum value package Datsun. Like this special edition King Cab MVP. Get $500 off sticker price on valuable options like jump seats, stereo, chrome step bumper, and more. Imagine $500 off. Look for similar discounts on 4x4, Lil Hustler, and Diesel MVPs. Get one now.
Datsun.